Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my bureau chief out of Washington, D.C. for SCLC, none other than Kimble, Attorney Kimble. And I hope you have enjoyed this panel on minority contracting. Man, is that a big deal, minority contracting. I know from firsthand experience. And economics, equity is my passion.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kimble, DC Bureau Chief for SCLC. And today's panel is Minority Contracting, Problems and Solutions. We have three great experts to talk about all the obstacles facing our Black contractors and possible solutions the government can implement to give us a better share. As you all know, I don't have to tell you, the data on minority contracting is abysmal for African Americans. I'm gonna let everyone give a quick introduction, and then Brad Anderson is going to take it away with the data points because he's got the results from the SBA study that we want to talk about, and then we'll run from there. So I'll start with Brad introduction and then make my way counterclockwise. Brad?
Hello, I'm Brad Anderson. I'm the CEO of Global Risk Managers, and I want to pass this on to President Ellis to introduce the Atlanta chapter of the National Association of Minority Contractors.
Thank you, Brad. Ernest Ellis. I am the president of the National Association of Minority Contractors Greater Atlanta Chapter. I'm also president and CEO of FS360. We're a construction management general contracting firm just celebrating our 16th year. Glad to be here.
Mr. Dukes?
Yeah, I'm Winfred Dukes. I'm a former state legislator for 26 years. But my day job is that always was that I was CEO of Dukes, Edwards, and Dukes Construction, a firm that has been in business for over 71 years. I'm a second generation contractor.
Great. Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to do this. Brad, as you know, with Dr. Steele, we were on his show a couple of months ago talking about this issue and the idea that the government has got $1.5 trillion worth of infrastructure spending and no way to ensure that minority contractors get any part of that. So I'll let you jump off with the background and then we'll circle around.
Sure. So a couple of data points. Kevin, I'm going to start with what you sent me today in the disparity study that was done in New Jersey. And basically, I think the results in New Jersey are fairly consistent with results around the country. And that is that minority contractors in New Jersey are getting about 0.14% of the construction business in New Jersey. They make up 9.19% of the contractors, but they get 0.14% of the construction dollars. Hispanics are getting 6.3%, although they make up 11.65% of the construction business in New Jersey. Asians make up 6.3% of the construction business. They get about 2.3% of the business that's going on. Non-minority males, they make up 52% of the business, and they get 88.16% of the dollars that are spent in construction. The SBA numbers are a little different. So for Asian Americans, the SBA numbers, and this is just in the transportation industry, they get about 4.6%. African Americans are getting about 3.9. African Americans are getting 3.1. Hispanics are getting 3.9. Native Americans are getting 3.4. And the non-small businesses are getting 63%. That would be predominantly your white male businesses are getting 63% of those transportation construction dollars. So the numbers are pretty bad all the way around. There are a couple programs that the federal government has put in place through the Biden administration's executive orders, the Infrastructure and Jobs Acts, has the Justice 40 initiative to help smaller minority contractors, but they really haven't done a lot to sort of drill down to address minority contractor problems, which, as we discussed earlier, have to do with having access to capital, having access to basically the technology and the the workforce to be able to do large infrastructure projects, to be bonded, and other challenges that small and minority contractors have that President Ellis and Winford are much more capable of discussing. And I'd pass this on to them to share what some of their challenges are. And then, Kevin, I know you want to talk about some of the possible help and solutions that are out there that may be able to assist small and minority contractors. So, President Ellis, you want to go first and talking about what you guys are facing in the industry?
Well, thank you. Well, the issues are multiple and multidimensional. As I like to say, you guys have heard the saying, "This ain't checkers, this is chess," and then that's essentially what we're up against, because we have our internal growth issues that we need to address from a development standpoint. We being Black contractors, as we take on more complicated, more comprehensive, and more expensive projects, we have to raise our skill level, and we have to attract the workforce that's capable of doing that work. And so if I am trying to attract a young graduate from Clemson or Florida, from Georgia Tech, to work for me versus a Turner, I have a hard time, attracting that talent, even if I offer market dollars. So there's a capability equation that we have to address, that we have to tackle, and be creative, so that we can continue to grow our businesses with the right people to do the right jobs. So those are internal struggles, and there are multiple ones there. From a capacity standpoint, from building our bonding capacity, from having the right marketing approach. I mean, those are internal things that we all struggle with, and we manage every day. Second generation, third generation construction firms just get good at that. You get better at it, and you grow and you grow. Those are things we can't control. The things we can't control are access to capital, and what I call access to information. I've had the conversation at every level, at the federal and state and even the local level. The most powerful thing you can give an entrepreneur is information, and access to knowledge and information. And so it's just been recently, on the federal side, where the aggregated data was broken down. I think President Biden was the first president to break it down. And we now know that Black contractors get 1.7% of the spend of the largest procurer of construction in the world. And so now that we know that, there's some things that we should be able to do, but there are institutional barriers that we face, at least in Georgia, where, quite frankly, the state is not a collaborative partner. It is what it is. And, and I've had that conversation with legislators that if the state or the primary procurer of infrastructure dollars in this state isn't a viable and willing partner, it makes it really hard. It makes it doubly hard to find a place to be successful. So from an infrastructure standpoint, from a utility standpoint, from rural internet, from EV, all the dollars that are in the IIJA, I know that there was money built into the bills so that we could have an opportunity to grow and enrich our firms. But truthfully, access to those monies, access to those dollars has been very difficult. And until the federal and state governments do something differently, it's going to continue to be difficult.
That's right. Mr. Dukes?
Thank you. Well, I can agree with you because we do have internal challenges, but internal issues. But many of our internal issues are as a result of exterior challenges. You see, typically we pay more for bonding, we pay more for insurance, we pay more for capital when we can get it. And I used to end up having to pay more for material. You see, once you start that, your profit margin in any job that you bid on has now been diminished. You need that money to be able to address those internal challenges. When I first went to the legislature, I was there but 4 years before that, I was a unpaid lobbyist for African American business enterprises. See, when we went there, the governor of Georgia did a study, which was Zale Miller. It was sponsored by Cynthia McKinney and David Lucas. And what they found was in the state of Georgia that less than 1% of all of the money that was being spent for minority firms, or less than 1% was being spent with minority firms, and less than 0.5% was being spent on African Americans. So we kind of took that challenge on. And we continued to be persistent and to drill in, so much so until I stopped being a lobbyist and became a legislator to see if we can help to change the policy. We do have policy in place in Georgia, and we have worked it such that it is there for minority contractors. But what the challenge is the culture of the good old boy system that has already been set into place. And what most don't do, which is beyond what legislators are supposed to do, is to drill down and to see what the obstacles are. Georgia, those numbers that you mentioned, Brad, is much like the numbers in Georgia or any other state in the union. You see, in Georgia with DOT, what we have is a 12% minority participation goal, which includes white females. So before that, their inclusion, it was 10%, and it was all African Americans. African Americans was getting 10% of the DOT work in Georgia. After we included white females, it went up to 12%. But this is what the key was. White females began to get 8% of the money, which only left us with 4%. And I remember one day I went to the well stating those statistics, and I said, you know, white people still get 90%, 96% of the money. And those were the things that we viewed as unacceptable in Georgia. But what I have found is that it's the culture that has been put into place by those people who administer those dollars that are obstacles and challenges that we have to overcome.
Right. So we travel around with SCLC and with the other people that work with. We travel around the country, a lot of states, and the story is the same. Like the numbers in New Jersey are the same as Georgia, the same as Minnesota. I mean, I don't care where you go, that is a real problem. And one of the things, Dr. Steele, and Dr. Steele will say this, he worked really hard all last year on a project in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Sherwin-Williams was building a $1 billion facility, their new $1 billion headquarters, and they refused to give any Black prime contracts out. So there were all the main contractors were all white, even though the city council was majority Black and the mayor was Black. And they fought, they screamed, never got very far. But it does seem to be that there's a structural. This is systemic, right? It's not it's not a simple problem. It's a systemic problem. And I know we're short on time with President Ellis, so I will try to I'll throw this out to the group. And Mr. Dukes, Representative Dukes, tell us a couple of solutions that we might address, like start addressing. I know, Brad, I know you've got one big one what we've talked about on a couple of occasions. Then let everyone else speak as well.
No, let's let Dr. Ellis or President Ellis speak first, since he's got the shortest window and speaks for the National Association of Minority Contractors Atlanta chapter. Well, I have a little bit more time because this is an important conversation. So I pushed off my next obligation because this is important. So okay. I appreciate what you're doing here. The president of the Associated General Contractors and I are having a conversation, and he's said it on more than one occasion. But talking about workforce primarily, he has said multiple times that the construction industry is too pale, too male, and too stale. Those aren't my words. Those are his words. And that's the reality. I mean, Representative Duke, I'm not surprised that 96% state funding is going, to that community. Not surprised at all. There are institutional barriers in this industry that are going to take generations to break down. Even though the representative is the second generation, it's going to take
it's going to take continued pounding and effort because this industry is one of the few last industries that cannot be outsourced. It is the skill set is passed down from father to son and brothers and cousins and nieces. It is a familial industry. It is a nativist industry. And so when you look at the workers on the front line that are managing, they don't look like us. For instance, we're now doing data center work, and we've been doing aviation work for the years. And you don't see many Black project managers doing that work. You don't see many Black superintendents building data centers, right? So it's going to take a coordinated effort. And NAMAC, the National Association of Minority Contractors, just to level set, is a national trade association advocating on behalf of minority contractors for 55 years. We're in our 55th year anniversary with our national conference here in Atlanta this year. And we focus on the issues of access, advocating on behalf of our community, developing our members so that if we take the argument away of can they, we want to do the things that absolutely emphatically can reply, yes, we can do this work. We've been doing it for years. We built this country.
Right.
Now we want to build it as owners. And at the same time, we don't do it with trying to in a finger wagging mode. It is an opportunity, right, to build relationships that drive value. Because here's the fact. The fact of the matter is, white folks can't build all the stuff that needs to get built. There ain't enough of them.
Can I ask you, now that you got a little time, we can really delve into this. So I want to ask this question, because, if you got 88% of the contracts or 96% of the contracts, inevitably, if they bring more people in, somebody on the 96% side is gonna, be unhappy, right? I mean, that's why they're complaining about D&I, whatever. It's not so much that the numbers are horrible, but every 1% that moves in a better direction or another direction, they feel is the money coming out of their pockets. So how are you able to be collaborative in that conversation when it's a zero-sum game, and some people would rather see the system go down than actually share?
Well, my thought is real quickly is that it's the owners of the projects and not the prime contractors that are going to drive the change.
Okay.
At every level, the state, the national, maybe even more private. Those are the ones that are going to drive change because they're the ones that actually are procuring the services at the end of the day. The state's going to have to, have a DNA shift, but private development, the Delta Airlines of the world, we do a lot of work with them. Chase Bank, we've done a lot of work with them over the years. So us as Black contractors, as minority contractors, we need to buy those that buy us.
Mm-hmm.
If they won't give us work, go where we can get the work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we advocate those relationships within NAMAC, and the traction is starting to pay off.
Mr. Dukes?
It's a lot of ways that we can begin to address that. I mean, listen, I've spent 26 years trying to figure out how we can kind of crack this nut. Right. I mean, really and truly. And what we have done in Georgia is that we have established policies that can allow us to participate in any capacity that we would like to. But what we have to have is policymakers who have the will to make sure that that is addressed. I was thinking about some other things you said earlier. You said, how do we overcome these challenges? We know what the challenge is. If I'm paying more money for insurance, then I got to get an insurance policy that will put us all on the same level playing field. Right. And so often there's so many products out there that will not only put us on the same playing field at the same cost, but we can reinvest some of those dollars into doing things to assist minority contractors in becoming better at providing those services. They sit around and we got, we got these big firms throughout Metro. They have been doing this for millions and for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of a sudden, everybody expects for us to go out there and to
Mm-hmm.
be able to compete with these firms on every level.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that I have done in order to be successful in my community is that here's your challenge. One is insurance, one is capital, the other one is workforce.
Mm-hmm.
We have worked through the capital. If I get a job as a general contractor or a construction manager, what I try to do is bring in as many minorities as possible. Sometimes they don't have what they need.
Mhm.
If they need capital, I got a place where we can go through what the city has created, along with the private sector, to get these guys some money.
Mhm. Mhm.
We have our own, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Your own lineage operation, yeah.
Yes, yes,
Your own lineage facility, yes.
absolutely. We saw that as a challenge. I see that as a challenge. A lot of those things that are in place, we passed legislation in the state of Georgia, down not only for the state government, but for all of the subdivisions of the state.
Mhm.
Whereas is that if we really drill deep,
Mhm.
we have the capacity to address many of those challenges.
Mhm.
See, they were not passed for us,
Mhm.
but they made it law.
Mhm.
I served as the economic development chairman for the Georgia Legislature's Black Caucus
Mhm.
for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And I hosted a seminar to train legislators, city managers,
Mhm.
county administrators, superintendents, procurement managers
Mhm.
on how we can enhance minority participation with the laws that we have
Mhm.
and make it work. It is there. We can do it without a disparity study.
Mhm.
Because basically, once a community of people decide that this is what our will is, we, particularly Black people, can be unstoppable. But I'm a deacon too. On the other issue, we just have to get to the point where we really want to see each other achieve and to have it.
Mhm.
Once we get there, because the policies are in place,
Mhm.
we'll be unstoppable. And I think it's something that the next generation is going to buy into.
And to piggyback what the representative is saying, for an industry this big, top 5 GDP industry in this country,
Mhm.
um, our community is not mobilized to take advantage of this business that's out here to the degree that we need to be. The Associated General Contractors, Associated Builders and Contractors are the 2 largest trade associations in the country, and they are all over this industry lobbying the Gold Dome, lobbying Washington, D.C., so that policies are put in place that tailor to their needs. And the fact of the matter is that, as a community, and for all the contractors that we have, all the Black contractors, even female contractors, Black and brown contractors, if you will, we're not as strong as we should be collectively, so that we're, again, rising tide lifts all boats, right? One of my favorite lines. We need to raise the tide for the entire industry because the numbers are big. And the fact of the matter is there's so much work, there's so much opportunity out there that, yes, I mean, the majority community, they don't want their opportunity to diminish. But the fact of the matter is owners know that we bring value and they know they need us because the work won't get built, schedules will get extended, risk rises. We are part of the solution. And coming together, whether it's via NAMAC or rolling up to and lending your voice to legislators like Representative Duke and others, we have to mobilize because this industry has driven wealth and created wealth since the founding of this country.
Yeah.
It's a fact. And we're missing out on the opportunity every day that we don't have a collective voice and a collective vision and driving the best opportunity for all of us.
Can I,
Again, that's what NAMAC does, and we're not the only one. But we're doing everything we can to raise the volume on that.
I want to throw before I throw it to Brad to do cleanup on this. 5 years ago during the Trump tax cuts, there was a thing called opportunity zones. You guys probably heard of that. We were big opponents of opportunity zones because we didn't think, we actually worked with one of your congressmen, Hank Johnson, to do a bill that would have required minority participation in opportunity zones and opportunity fund projects, because there was no way that even though it was geared towards underserved communities, the people who were going to come in and do the work and do the financing were not going to be minorities. And over the years, that's come to be the fact that I'm sure I can ask you, have either of you guys ever done an opportunity fund project?
No.
No. It was really, really not designed for us.
Yeah, and we fought for that. So I want to end it with advocacy. But I want Brad to talk about. I know I want to give it to Brad, but I do want to talk about how we, working with the contractors and SCLC and all the other groups, that we get more aggressive in our advocacy, because those bills should not be passing without our being at the forefront of putting information into that, or provisions into it that give us an opportunity to participate. So I do want to touch that before we close out, but Brad, jump on.
Well, both
Your
Winford
face
and
froze.
my face is froze.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Is it froze still?
It froze, but it's in a good freeze. It's not a bad freeze. It's okay.
That's interesting. So both of the contractors, President Ellis and Representative Dukes, have talked about the financial challenges, and one of those challenges is insurance. And we've been working even with the SCLC and National Association of Minority Contractors chapters across the country on advocating for the use of owner-controlled insurance programs on federal projects. And I know that in Atlanta, we have the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport that uses an owner-controlled insurance program. The Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit, MARTA, uses owner-controlled insurance programs. So they're relatively prevalent in aviation and mass transit, not so much in heavy road construction, and other trades or other types of construction, where we're trying to push the federal government to use this program to fund training, education, and workforce development. And workforce development is one of those issues that we've talked so much about today, and trying to strengthen minority contractors' capabilities through them being able to build their workforce. So owner-controlled insurance programs is one of the things that we've been advocating for to support small and minority contractors. Another tool that we're pushing harder is contractor default insurance. Is basically replacing bonding. It's an insurance policy that takes the place of a bond, where an owner can have a general contractor basically set aside 10% of the construction budget to fund letters of credit for minority contractors, subcontractors, to receive bonding in a non-traditional format. And that really can help small and minority contractors work on larger projects without having to have those capital restraints that they typically have in traditional bonding. So the owner-controlled insurance program and the subcontractor default insurance are two financial tools that we're using. But this is bigger than just finance. We talked about workforce development. We talked about training. One of the things that I'm very much involved in is reducing mass incarceration. And both President Ellis and Winford talked about hiring our own. And we need to hire our youth so that they have alternatives to ending up incarcerated. And we need to have a way of hiring our youth that have been incarcerated so they don't become victims of recidivism. With the highest population of our people is oftentimes in prisons. And we need to change that by training them, by educating our folks, and giving them an alternative to going to jail and living healthy and productive lives and becoming part of tax-paying society. And Representative Dukes and President Ellis, if you guys have anything more you want to share about ways that we can hire more of our people and change this trajectory that we have of so many of us ending up in the wrong places at the wrong time.
I'm a huge advocate, being an old farm boy. I grew up on a tobacco farm in Kentucky. I'm a huge advocate for entrepreneurship, number one, and the trades, number two. And I'll be quick. If we bring in young workers from high school at a entry level labor rate of $18 to $22 an hour, and that's the going rate, right? And with overtime, that's $40,000, $45,000 a year, because we're in an overtime environment. By the time you're 22, 23 years old, you're 5 years into the business, you get OSHA trained, free, hazardous materials trained, probably free, confined space trained free, OSHA 30, more than likely. You're going to get trained free. And by the time you're 23 years old, 25 at the latest, you're probably going to be a superintendent in this business, making $75,000 minimum, no debt.
Yep.
No debt, right? That's middle class, gentlemen. That's Black middle class. And I've advocated for that for years, understanding my background, what my father's done, and especially since I've been in this role as NAMAC. So whether or not we get into the school system as entrepreneurs, as SCLC and NAMAC, that's a message we need to tell, because everything doesn't revolve around cell phones and internet and TikTok. There are other ways to build wealth.
We SCLC, through its chapter in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, did do a trade program with the utility lineman. That was the thing I mentioned earlier. And I think 30 over the last 5 or 6 years, 30 or 40 kids have gone through that program. And they're all supervisors now. And the first kid who got his job like 6, 7 years ago, is 25, is making $80 an hour and has a 30-acre farm. So yeah. And then has no debt. So there's a real opportunity. I think getting kids in that mindset early is a big deal. So, Mr. Dukes?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Mr. Kimble, I want to thank you for what it is that you do for SCLC. I know it's a tireless work, and you don't do it for the money. You do it because you love your people. And the same with you, Mr. Ellis. You are the president of the Atlanta chapter of the National Association of Minority Contractors, and I can just about imagine how tough that job is. So I want to thank you for your service. And Ms. Anderson, I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to just be a part of this discussion. You've always been forward thinking when it comes to minority inclusion and working through some of the barriers that exist. Insurance is a major barrier. Financing, workforce development, what you have outlined is how we can address some of those things. Mr. Ellis, I advocated for a college and career academy here in Dougherty County, which is up and running. And one of the careers that we have is construction. The trades. And like you say, adults can make a real living in construction. They can. And the other part of it is this. I was a founding chairman of the Georgia Summit of African American Business Organizations, and we went throughout the state holding seminars and events talking about this very issue. But one of the things that came out of it was this: 87% of the people that a business owner hires is someone who looks like him.
Yeah.
Someone who looks like him. We can put ourselves in a capacity such that we can provide jobs for this next generation of African Americans, and they can make $70,000, $80,000 a year. Our work is cut out for us. But those of us, Mr. Anderson and Mr. Ellis and myself, who are, we're old, but we're not ancient. And we have worked hard in this space. And we have actually created an opportunity for the next generation. What we have to do is continue to do what we are doing, because relief has come at last.
Amen. Well, gentlemen, I mean, we've run up on about an hour. I know Mr. Ellis has got people waiting for him to make it wait. Brad, I'll let you go.
Listen, I got 3 or 4 outside of my office right now.
This is I mean, the people need to hear this, and a lot of things happen by the time it gets to people's awareness. It's too late for them to impact it. So I'm thankful that you guys were willing to do this, and Brad was able to organize and get you guys here, because the people who are going to be in this audience, or the people who are going to see this on YouTube. And I tell you, I travel around and people say, I saw you on the Dr. Steele's show. I know you. So they see this stuff. It does get around, and people are thirsty for this knowledge and want to know how they can help and how they can participate. So, I'll give you guys a chance at the end, like to give we'll put your emails up, or your websites, and how they can touch base if they got something to offer or some way to be helpful. Because I do think, advocacy is our issue. Like, so we had a state rep, now you've gone, so we got to get some more state reps like you back in the battle, Mr. Dukes. But Brad, why don't you close us out, and thank you guys.
Well, I just want to again thank you, Kevin, for creating this opportunity for us to get together, and thank President Ellis for his generous time this afternoon, and Representative Dukes. I know you guys are making things happen in your communities and across the country, and I just want to encourage you to continue the battles that you're waging, and wish you all the success.
Thank you, everyone.
And I say this: don't let this be the last time we talk. I mean, this is enough for us to we got state stuff, local stuff. And if other issues come up, let's do another Zoom about a particular issue if it comes up. We don't have to just wait till the annual conventions to talk about things.
If I know Brad, he's not going to let us get away that easy. So I'm sure we'll be talking again.
Absolutely. Listen, it was good meeting y'all, and I really enjoyed the opportunity just for us to have dialogue.
Absolutely.
Share ideas.
Thank you.
Iron sharpens iron.
Brad, you
Amen.
can turn off the recording.